What's up, everybody? So I noticed some comments in chat that we are early. We are indeed early, but technically late. We got a very special little stream for y'all today. We are going to be doing a little dev Q&A stream with some community contributors to introduce y'all to the post progression slash vehicle modernization feature that's being tested on Sandbox. So we're gonna dive into pretty much gonna go ahead and dive into it. I guess Tragic, if you want to hit the transition. Joining us today are Neon Shadow, our product manager for the World of Tanks product, and Draconis Imperialis, who is one of our game designers. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, nice to hear you today.
Good day, my friend.
Awesome, awesome. We can hear everybody just fine. Thank you for joining us. And joining us as well, we have 5 of our very talented, very knowledgeable community contributors. We have got going from the top left over to the right, kind of like you're reading a book. We've got Germ, we've got Tombs, we've got Papa Rage, 13 Disciple, and Knight Rider joining us.
Howdy.
Hello.
Good to be here.
Hello.
Oh, apparently, interesting.
Hello.
Not using speakers.
Hello.
Tragic. We're apparently having a little technical difficulties. One second, folks. Good now? All right, all right. Unknown Soldier 666 says it's fixed. Okay, so yeah, chat.
I don't
just
know.
Go ahead
I
and
feel
go
like
ahead and
we're
sound
okay
off.
being in an echo chamber.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I live in an echo chamber, so it's a state of being for me. But cool, we got the audio issue sorted out. Sorry about that, folks. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and just I guess we're gonna just dive into the Q&A here. I am going to fade into the background here, mysteriously disappear. And basically we're just gonna have a little conversation about the feature and what y'all can expect on the Sandbox.
Oh, was that on my end or? Okay, you want me to redo the question? All right, thank you, disembodied voice. Okay, so from a game design perspective, how does the field modification system make the game better and provide more or additional features to the player base? What is the driving force behind it?
Okay, I will start. So basically, when the idea came out, the sole reasoning behind it was that we have a large number of players who have played like thousands, dozens of thousands some battles sometimes. They have some of their favorite vehicles, which they played very, very many battles. And well, like they researched all the modules, they've got the equipment, the crew with 7 perks and so on and so forth, and they tell us like, hey guys, we don't have much to do in the game. So basically the field modification is aimed primarily, not solely, but primarily towards those veteran players with a lot of experience in certain vehicles with some favorite vehicles. And the feature now offers them an opportunity to fine-tune those vehicles, basically to adjust the way those vehicles perform in battle, thus gaining a new twist in gameplay in gameplay experience. And we also have a set of features that improve, let's say, the comfort of life of players who, which we think will be liked by the absolute majority of our player base. And Dima, if you have something to add, please fire away.
Oh yeah, sure. So yeah, the game is like really old. The game's been around for more than 10 years now, and frankly, for many players who've been with us for such a long time, there's a question rises. So I love, for example, I myself like my M36 Jackson. I've made a lot of good battles with it. Made three marks of excellence. Everything's fine, but unfortunately, there isn't much for me to do with it anymore. And the field modification, or the post progression as we call it, is bound to give me something to do on my favorite tanks, to which I'm really used to. And in doing so, it will allow me to slightly alter the feeling of the tank I've used to so much by providing it tweaks to characteristics of the vehicle. I can feel it refresh, anew, so to say.
Awesome. Thanks.
So basically, to sum it up, the idea is to give a new twist in gameplay experience. And from there, we'll see how it goes.
When you guys made these changes, is there any concerns about like for example, I have like over 70k games combined, not counting like the numerous of training rooms I've done. I do a lot of the competitive end game content, so your clan wars, advances, any tournaments. I used to play WGL League when that was around, and a lot of my friends do, and the community I talk to does as well. And one thing we've noticed is I like to call it like main battle tank meta. So you see like right now there's just a lot of non-variety. Best way to put it is like T95 Chieftain. I'm sure you guys heard a lot of complaints about this, but it seems to phase out a lot of tanks, especially like medium tanks and such. And I can see it doing the same to heavies, especially with some of these changes with speed and all that, and HP being added onto it. So is there a concern about like the end game content for the competitive side as far as the meta is concerned with this, or?
Well, okay, let's go like one by one. First of all, yes, we are aware that we have some tanks which primarily those vehicles aren't on the global map, which cause some, let's say, issues. Like they are powerful in themselves, and they also get in the hands of powerful players, and from there it goes on and on and on. Some of the things that we are trying to combat those, like to remedy this situation, like to lessen the effect of such vehicles in our competitive mode, such as ranked battles and so on and so forth. For random battles, we like people earn those tanks. People deserve them. They got them after many hours of painful fighting, very stubborn fighting on the competitive scene, and we can't like phase them out of the feature. So our idea is that the feature should apply to like if not all vehicles in the game, like for the dominant majority of those. So we currently plan that it will also only exclude rental vehicles, and this is like a good system, the decision from the system point of view. Like it's very logical. Why should any specific vehicle be denied the possibility to apply like equipment bonuses from crew and now field modification? So the idea is that field modification will still apply to those vehicles. The thing is that the bonuses the field modification provides, they are not very impressive in themselves. It's like 2%, 3%, sometimes 5% to some parameter. And one of the pillars of the feature is that it not just grants you something, it takes something in return. like the dual modifications. You increase one parameter, but you have to decrease, but you have to pay for it, decreasing some other parameters. So we're talking about redistribution of parameters, not power creep. So it's not about making those vehicles straight even more effective. But we've got to understand that the key issue here is that not that those vehicles are like super powerful in themselves. It's the hands that drives those vehicles, the players. So like any bonus from field modification, like 3% HP, it doesn't have the influence that any your gameplay mistake does. Like if you drove to a wrong spot, if you're left in the open, like if you got in the crossfire, it has a much bigger impact on the outcome of the battle than any 3% to like engine power. So like we understand that the vehicles are powerful indeed, and they are in the hands of powerful players, but we also feel that it would be wrong, like unfair, to deny those vehicles the possibility to use field modification for them, because like we don't deny them the equipment, we don't deny them the same bonuses to crew, consumables, and so on and so forth. Why should this be any different? Of course, and that's what Sandbox is for, we will be tracking how those vehicles behave, how their performance changes, and that is why participation in the Sandbox is very important for us to get as much data as possible. But for now, we think that it should be fair to apply the feature to those vehicles as well. Sorry for the very long answer.
No, thank you. And I just wanted to say one last note on that question, because it was a long question. I just brought up the Chieftain mainly because it's just the biggest example, but it's more about, the question's more about like heavy tanks in general seem to, as far as what I can see, like the IS-7, like that's a tank everyone can get. It's not, super hard ground. Let's use that for an example. In a recent tournament on NA, I used a lot of IS-7s over medium tanks just due to the fact of having turbo and having speed. You can outphase that sort of thing. I guess my question was more in concerns of like tank variety, just as far as the end game competitive scene in Clan Wars being less and less, just due to the fact of adding speed on speed on speed, engine power. At a certain point, it seems to decrease the effectiveness of past tanks and what their roles were, like a 140, for example, or just any sort of medium tank. That was more what I was trying to get through.
Yeah, a major thing is that nothing is set in stone. We conduct the Sandbox namely to check how the vehicles will behave, how the performance will change. Of course, we cannot track it precisely over less than a week of the Sandbox, but we are still very closely monitoring those parameters. And the thing is, we started with those coefficients with them being very, very low, like 2-3%. Exactly not to make any harsh changes, some abrupt, some very rapid, evident stuff that can turn the game to an outcome that we don't want, like make battles faster, make battles like lifetime of tanks significantly less, and so on and so forth. We currently believe that those numbers should not be game breaking, and of course we have to remember that competitive scene is to the good or to the bad of our game, but it's very different in a lot of aspects from what we observe in random battles. So while we may have like the IS-7 as a major issue in competitive scene is like one thing, having an issue with the IS-7 in random battles is another thing. So we will be monitoring both the competitive environment, the usual environment, and you've got every chance to basically to affect the future of the feature, whether it will be released at all and in what state by playing battles. This will help us get the quantitative data and also providing us the feedback, which will give us the qualitative data. And we need to analyze both to make final decisions on what we're gonna do.
Sweet, thank you.
If I can follow up with a question, I really like the idea of having it could be called like an expansion if you add it to another game, because you will now have something else to work in your like tier 10 tanks. But aren't you afraid that newer players will feel alienated by this change? Like they will feel like this change is just bringing them way like further away from like experienced players?
Okay, like first of all, the intention of the feature was more for seasoned players, and the fact that it is applicable only to elite vehicles, it saves to an extent newer players from like getting into field modification by mistake before they have the chance to check out the whole tech tree. And of course, going up the tech tree is always more beneficial, but it provides you with access to higher tier tanks which have higher stats, new mechanics, those autoloaders, magazine systems, speed mode, and so on and so forth. Lots of cool stuff at higher tiers. And you should definitely climb up, then check out what vehicles does the tree have, like what vehicles do you enjoy playing, what vehicles may become your favorite. And only once you've done that, it's the right time to go into field modification. So it's not like field modification is compulsory, and it's definitely not for all the vehicles that one has in the game. But we also feel that the main like difference still remains in the hands of the player. Like more experienced will always more experienced players will always perform better than newer players, but we believe that it will be not due to field modification, but due to the sheer fact that they have more experience in the game, they have the better knowledge of its mechanics and so on and so forth. So, like, short answer, no, we do not believe that the field modification will suddenly have an effect that newer players like fall into the bottomless gap compared to more experienced players.
Thank you.
I guess I have a question about, I forgot the exact terminology of, the exact term of the dual modification thing where it's, you pick one or the other, you get 5% more aim time, and then you get 5% more horsepower or whatever, depending on whether it's a medium tank or a heavy tank. With some of those numbers, the only thing that concerned is I remember the example used was like a Leopard, and was something like gain 5% accuracy on your gun. And with that in particular, I'm just thinking the accurate at certain points with some of the numbers in the game, they can be misleading to newer players. 5% accuracy on a Leopard, losing it or gaining it doesn't really make any real applicable difference other than kind of RP, like role-playing elements. Why not with some of the numbers? What I was thinking with this, while it's nice to have these alternate advancement type systems in the game, why not maybe play around with it and go a little more extreme? Because the only time we've had the plus or minus thing is with just standard equipment in general. There was the idea of either you have an equipment or you pick something else. Either you have vertical stabilizer or you have vents, and you have 3 options, right? So it's like if you had vents, ram, or stabilizer, you didn't have optics, so you didn't get the view range. Now you have a much more clear-cut one or the other. What's to stop from, say, going with a more crazy multiplier in some of these, like 20% or 15%, than just because 5% is very small, just to see where maybe some craziness in changes in gameplay? Because I don't see too much of a change in overall gameplay from 5% accuracy plus or minus on a Leopard in the way that I would see from something more extreme. But it also has, I guess, the potential to break it. So I just want to know where you guys went with these options and what you foresee happening with it and where you want the game to go.
So I think it would be right for Dmitry to answer that, because he's mostly responsible for the design, the actual numbers, and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Oh, goody, I love them numbers. So the thing is, those small percents, they work in a very funny way. On the first glance, you really look at them and say, "Oh, it's just a 5%. It's not really that much." But when you think about it, it really adds up on the long run. 5% to 100 is, well, 5. But this 5 seems to be like a very small number. But after like 100 of battles, this is already 500, if you catch my drift. So while it may on the surface seem to be like a very small, minuscule value, in the end, you receive quite a significant boost in the long run. And by providing crazy values like 20%, 15%, this value only increases. While we potentially may have thought of playing with the bigger numbers, we decided to play it conservatively and see how it goes. So far, it hasn't disappointed us. Everything number-wise looks okayish. And I think for the future, we may consider something big or may not. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah, just
that makes sense.
to add on that, like imagine we start from say 20% increase, and then we see that, I don't know, your chieftain fires a shot every 3 seconds with consumables, with bone equipment, like with the vent, with the gun rammer for bones, and so on and so forth, and just obliterates stuff. And we say, hey guys, we decided that your 20% will now be 2%. And then like we have a crowd with torches and forks like near our office shouting, you nerfed our like tanks, the feature, you promised us something different, and now you change it, and now you take it away from us. It is always more painful for people to experience something that's being taken away from them than getting less, but still getting. So yeah, as Dima said, we decided to start low, and then given and if the system on the whole is accepted by our players, we can expand on that. We have the potential for it. We currently have like 8 levels. No one says it cannot be extended to 12 or 20 or 50 or whatever. But it is always safer to start low and never have to like deny our players something or take something away from them than starting from big numbers and then nerfing stuff. We all know how people react to that.
Exactly. I'm glad to hear it from you guys, because I've been saying the same thing for how you guys tend to come out with stuff over the years. And just so I'm clear, the idea is this will get the mechanism, the system in place. And then once it's a little bit solid and ground and get more numbers, then you can explore new options for minus plus on numbers, new equipment types altogether. You're just trying to get the groundworks, the foundation going.
Yeah, exactly. If I may add, what we are currently trying to check basically with this sandbox, 2 major goals. We have a concept. Okay, to be more precise, 2 concepts. First is the dual modifications, because that's a new mechanic for our game. We previously only granted something through equipment, through crew. We didn't have any stuff where we say, hey, we take something away from the tank. We only granted stuff. Now we have this new mechanic where we give something, but also ask something in return. If you want this bonus, please be kind to get a penalty in some other parameter. That's one thing. Another pillar is the special modifications, the second set of equipment, consumables, ammunition, and so on. Like the sandbox is twofold. We first try to get an understanding of how people react to the concepts themselves, to the ideas, whether they like the idea that they gain something but have to pay it with some other parameter, whether they like the idea of multiple presets of equipment. And then there is the actual implementation, which is a different thing. Like, if we see that people appreciate the idea but don't like the actual numbers, that's one thing for us to work with. If we see that the people do not accept the idea in general, for example, no one uses dual modifications because of God knows what reasons, then that's a completely different task for us to sit and think over like what we should do differently in the concept itself.
Well, you answered my question and then some, so thank you.
So I have a question. With these new field modifications, new mobility equipments, boosters, etc., moving the game to a faster pace, do you think that this new gameplay is gonna somehow damage more the matchmaking, and the fast-paced matches are gonna be even more fast than they are right now?
Dima, please save me.
Oh yeah. It should not be so. We've designed the whole system in a way that it would not have significantly affect those values. So yeah, should be fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
this sandbox is precisely to check whether we think right or whether we're terribly wrong. Because if we see that the battles are 1 minute shorter now on the sandbox, it is an alarm for us that, hey guys, probably we've done something wrong. That's of course, we should remember that everyone shoots special ammunition in the sandbox because the gold is unlimited. Like, you can go trigger happy wargaming pace for all of it. We have the means to mathematically tweak this to understand how this would be reproduced on the production servers. But yeah, anyways, the goal of the sandbox is precisely that, to check that we don't break anything that we currently have, and then we can capitalize on that. The primary focus is not to break anything that's already in place in the game. If we see that we break something, then we will readjust our parameters, readjust the concept depending on the extent of how much we break things. But we definitely will not go into the release if we see that, I don't know, the mouse dies in 2 seconds now.
So I've seen some comments in chat, and I'm going to try and put this in a more simple question. So there's the dual modification, which is you're increasing a parameter at the cost of another parameter. Ultimately, that keeps the vehicle mostly balanced. However, there is a standard modification, which is just a flat improvement that's pre-selected for you as you grind the tank beyond its elite status. So I think the concern from the community is we're hiding additional benefits behind additional grinding. And so from a new player perspective, I'm looking at this saying, not only do I have to grind through all these crummy modules, when it's finally done, now I've got to grind even more to get to, I know it's a really small percentage, but you're still saying in order for you to be as good as the best player on the server in terms of vehicle equipment, there's a new set of area that you're going to have to grind, and that's just the way it's going to be. Really the dual modification, I love that idea. That's saying, hey, we know you're experienced with this tank. We know you love this tank. Why don't we give you an opportunity to tweak it in a way that may be interesting to you, but it's at the cost of other characteristics. So ultimately, it should still be balanced. But in some ways, with the standard modification, it's increasing the overall capability of that vehicle. And on top of that, it's from tier 6 to tier 10, where the tier 10s get even higher standard modifications, where the tier 9 and the tier 8 don't. So tier 10, like the gap between the vehicle tiers widens even further. So not only does a tier 8 have to overcome the already substantial characteristics of a tier 10, now they're boosted even further. So I guess the question is, how do you keep that gap in check, and how do you prevent the player base from rebelling against trying to maximize their vehicle with all these extra grinds that they're going to have to do?
Okay, again, lots of questions. Where do I start? So regarding the let's say the difference between tier 10s and tier 8s, this is something we will be definitely closely monitoring, because yes, we do realize that tier 10 tanks receive 2 standard modifications and also the access to a couple more dual modifications, and the numbers there are slightly higher than in the first levels of field modification. However, well, it's not something new. Like it's the way the game is. It's no secret that higher tier tanks have higher stats, perform better than lower tier tanks. So a tier 10 was like stronger than a tier 8 even before. The goal here is not to like make this difference. Is not to bring it into an entirely new level, because we currently think that like it's okay. So again, the numbers in standard modifications, they are, let's say, we view those more of a reward for you investing your experience into unlocking the dual modification. Like, and in a case where you don't want to select any of the pair, you still have the reward for your experience, which is the slight bonus from dual modification. But as I said before, no 1, 2, 3% to engine power or HP will save you if you made a gameplay mistake. This only becomes like an important issue in an absolutely theoretical situation where there are like no other people on the battlefield but you and that guy who is your opponent. You have completely like the same tanks, the same crew, the same consumables, everything is the same, but he has like level 8 field modification and you don't. And you have like completely similar skill. And this way, yeah, those 2-3% may give him the advantage enough to win this duel over you. But this is a synthetic situation that may probably happen like once in 1,000 battles in the real world of tanks, because like there are 14 other people on your team and 15 people that you oppose, and lots of stuff going on. You can make lots of mistakes or right decisions, and the fact that you have like plus 30 HP, we don't believe that it will like turn into something new for you. It's like a compliment from the chef when you go it out, but it's not definitely something that should make or break your game. Dima, if you have anything to add, please.
Well, once again, as I said, we launched it in the sandbox precisely to check out for things like that. While it may look good on paper, we'll check it out how it went on a sandbox and then apply measures if necessary.
Did
Yeah,
you
because-
guys sorry to cut off there, because I just want to keep going with the standard. Did you guys consider because I know you wanted to have, okay, so maybe you don't want to choose between these things, but we still want to reward the player for these levels beyond elite status. Did you consider maybe cosmetic modifications as opposed to balance challenging modifications?
We had an idea of cosmetic stuff in the future, like at very early stages, but it was some stage it was discarded. We decided to focus on basically on what we now present on the sandbox. Again, if we see that our players do not like the system, or if the system somehow interferes with the normal flow of the game, we will have to look at alternatives. But currently, we prefer it this way, and we also know that, let's say, vehicle parameters is something, especially boosting them, is everyone likes. Cosmetics, while we have a very vast group of people who do enjoy our styles, our customization options, there are also people who don't care. And we want to basically to make the feature attractive to all of our players. So for this time, we go like this. We go with tweaking vehicle parameters.
Thanks.
If I can
So-
follow up with a, sorry.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Thank you. If I can follow up with a question that is something kind of related to the topic, but there was something that really caught my eye when I saw the video for Wargaming, and it was that they were putting the tanks in different, not only like heavy tank, not only like medium tank, but they were also like making sniper medium tanks and making assault medium tanks, and just making everything different, so that, like, for example, now an AMX 50B is no longer the same as a mouse, because they are clearly not the same. But still, the matchmaker pairs them up as the same, because if you're in Himmelsdorf and you have a mouse and you're facing a 50B, you are obviously in a great advantage. How do you feel about implementing that, like, different like subcategory of tank into the matchmaker to make everything like a little bit more fair, if that makes sense?
Tell me correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've long had the categories in Matchmaker as well. So if you are the mouse and you face the 50B, and you're like the only heavy tanks or tier 10 heavy tanks, that's what we call a soft fail of the matchmaker, which means that it was unable to find a corresponding heavy tank of like the Japanese heavy or another mouse or EU100 to put it against you. And the only thing it was able to find was the 50B, which should be a very rare case as it is.
But I have seen myself, like, let's say, Leopard 1 against an Object 430U, and that happens actually pretty often. I don't know if, like, how many subcategories are inside the matchmaker, but I think it would be great to, like, differentiate them better, like you are doing right now with the whole, like, categories inside the field modifications.
Okay, I don't have much knowledge in the field of matchmakers, so I can't comment on that much. I know that we do have those categories, but the thing that may affect your experience, especially like during the night time, since you have a lower population on the server, is that the matchmaker may be unable to find the mirror vehicle for you. And in order for you not to wait in the queue for like 3-4 minutes, it starts the battle with what it was able to, with the vehicles that were in the queue. So yeah, it may match medium tanks of different roles, but like that's the boundary of my knowledge. I don't have in-depth knowledge of how it works.
Okay, thank you.
So I was gonna ask, because with the field modifications, you get like 5% engine, and you get a decrease in another parameter. Why not, instead of like, because all these parameters seem like stuff that can be added on with equipment, why have you guys considered messing around with like other parameters like gun depression, or like AP shell damage, or pen, or armor values, even like doing an increase in that instead of stuff that we've already been like used to increasing?
Dima?
That's actually a good question. It's partially been answered before. We thought about like a lot of parameters. Our system is very versatile, but we decided to for the first iteration of the system, we've decided to like use the safest parameters, like not touch very not touchy parameters. Sounds strange, but here we are. And yeah, in the future we may or may not use those parameters, but for now we have decided like to use something safer. Oh, and there's a very neat thing with gun depression thingies on the Mustang on the Mustangs when gun depression is increased even more. The guns are starting to poke into the hulls, unfortunately. But yeah, it's just a very little bit tidbit from my own experience.
Yeah, and when we talk about armor actually translates pretty well into HP, because like, what is armor? Like, what's your survivability? It's a function of how much HP you have and how good is your armor. So like, basically, what percentage of hits can you deflect, and which goes through. So, and it all like results in improved survivability. So basically, instead of tweaking with armor, which makes us tweak with vehicle motors themselves and like do lots of complex stuff, we can basically use the HP, which is exactly what we did for heavy tanks, light tanks of top tiers. So like it would be the same result, but in like with a lot less effort.
Okay.
I-
No, that makes sense.
I guess I have a question that maybe was part of my earlier one, but we've gone back and forth on, okay, so we have the standard thing that 13 Disciple brought up, where it's just, this mouse is just gonna have a little more HP, move a little faster, turn a little faster, whatever, with the standard, the not plus minus one. What is the ultimate goal of all of these alternate advancement system, if not for... My issue is I don't really see gameplay changing. Yes, over the course of 1,000 battles, there will be 3 games that go like this, that would have gone like that. But in general, if I load into Abby on a T110E5 and the enemy's in a T110E5 or an IS-7 or a 140, whatever it is anything going to change? Or is the gameplay just going to be the same that it's been for the last 2, 3, 4 years? Like, is anything fundamentally changing with the gameplay itself? Because these slight tweaks one way or the other, and I get that they may get more extreme in the future, I don't see, like, if I stream another battle on Abby, I don't see it going any differently than people that watch. I can imagine someone that hasn't watched my stream in 4 years, and they come in, and are they going to see anything different than they saw 4 years ago? Not to be, I'm not trying to be rude about it. It's just like, what's the overall goal of this, other than just a carrot for people to chase to get a little bit more green number?
Okay, so the gameplay should not change dramatically, and probably the people that haven't watched the game for a very long time, they will not even notice that something's fishy, something's been added. We haven't seen this before, apart from the things which you probably will feel, like most likely will feel, and that's definitely the second set of equipment, the second set of ammunition consumables, which can be changed depending on the map you're loading. Like if you load into Himmelsdorf and you've got, even if you've got some SPGs, that game, they're not that big of a threat. So you can skip the spall liner and get the vertical stabilizer, for instance. If you get into a tier 10 fight, what we call it technically, like you are in a tier 10 and you face tier 8s, you can use standard ammunition. If you've got into a fight where you have all the tier 10 tanks, you definitely, well, most likely need more special ammunition, you can have separate presets for that, because we know that there are some vehicles which have not that much ammunition, like the Manticore, the IS-6. That just came up to my head. There are definitely more, and you like if you go with a single ammunition loadout, you one way or another you have to shoot that special ammo, whether you like it or not. So this option enables you to save some creds, like use the ammunition that the situation requires. Again, if you get into a fight with artillery or without it, you can change Spolliner for something that boosts your firepower or survivability or mobility, like to get into the position early. So those things that enable one to adapt to the upcoming battle in a better way. Those you should definitely feel. At least we think that you will feel it. As for the 1, 2, 3% changes, those were not designed to be like noticeable, to be seen as something like dramatic. Your 140 suddenly overpowers, I don't know, the mouse. That won't be the case. The nature of the numbers itself and the nature of how those numbers are granted, because like you mentioned that mouse before, it has more HP, drives faster, but its turret rotates slower, it has a slower reload time, and so on and so forth, because it sacrificed some stuff to get that engine power, for instance. And we've got to keep that in our heads, that it's not about boosting the parameters mostly. It's most of the numbers come from dual modifications, and those always come at a cost.
Indeed, I would like to add on this matter as well, as the whole point of dual modifications is to either adjust the gameplay you currently have on the vehicle, like making it more ultimate in what it's good at, or trying to cover its negative sides and trying to make it a little bit more universal. For example, my favorite tier 10 heavy tank is Mouse. And with the field modification system, I can either make it even slower, even sturdier, even, well, I wouldn't say bigger, but it won't actually get bigger. So more surviving vehicle. Or I can try to sacrifice some of that survivability to make it somewhat less sluggish, somewhat faster, somewhat more universal. Well, if as far as it can be applied to Mouse. So the whole thing is not to change your gameplay on the vehicle drastically. It's to more attune it to what would you expect of a vehicle. But because all people, everyone perceives things differently. And I, for example, would like when and if it goes live, I would just like toss everything on my Mouse that will make it more survival. Because for me, Mouse equals survival, and hell, I want to make it more tough.
Yeah, I'd say with all the changes you guys are saying, the post-modernization stuff to me just seems, I mean, like you said at the beginning, that it's not really going to change gameplay. So in my mind, it's not going to change gameplay. It doesn't really matter to me. It's like bonded equipment and then the other type of equipment. And then in the end, it's small little tweaks, and it's just, in my mind, a carrot for someone to chase. It's not really going to change things ultimately, unless you have the RP thing where it's like, I'm a Mouse, I'm big and beefy, and I'll have 50 more HP than those guys at the expense of aim time or something. But not to be too negative, because that's the way I see that part of it. The two forms of equipment loadouts and shell loadouts, to me, is the big hidden gem of all of this, whether it's in this new system or something separate. That, to me, is a big gameplay changer and gives a lot of power to people to have pre-planning for, like you said, they have their light tank and they have a loadout for general maps, and then they get lake fill or something and they want to try to passive scout somewhere. I think that's fantastic. I love this option now, how it's implemented, all the little tweaks. If you could just maybe swap one piece here or just have two preordained sets, whatever, that's nitty gritty. I think that's a great addition. I think, honestly, I'm about 10 times more excited for that than I am for the other stuff, even though it probably didn't take as much work.
So piggybacking off of Germ's observations, I did have a question regarding the alternate loadouts. So when you first load into a match, you've got a 30-second countdown. Do you guys have the statistics back there to understand whether players have enough time? Because not everybody loads in at the 30-second mark. Some people load in at 20. You can look at the names and see, some of those slower internets may take a little bit of time. Do you think that part of the feedback you're looking for is if players have long enough to make these choices before the match starts?
Yeah, that's actually one of the major things on our agenda. That's one of the things that we're tracking very attentively. We have statistics from the production server, and they are actually very optimistic for us because, only 20% of our players have one instance of not loading into a battle before the timer runs out in 100 battle or in 1000 battle. I don't have it by my hand, so it's like rare as it is. Also, how the game works is that the countdown doesn't start itself before the 16 players assemble for the battle. The countdown doesn't start. We do realize that there still are some players who are with us but have, let's say, lower end PCs, and we are currently investigating a solution that would benefit everyone, make everyone able to switch between the loadouts on a timely manner. However, we definitely won't be implementing that for the sandbox, for the current sandbox, because that's technologically it's very expensive, and at the same time it affects a very low percentage of the players, so it's simply not worth the effort for the outcome. If the feature is accepted and if the players show that they are eager for the feature, they are waiting for it, then for the release we will definitely investigate the solutions that will ultimately make everyone happy. For the time being, we realize that we not only have players that on lower end PCs, we also have lots of players who actually load into the battle quite fast. But what they do is they get into the queue, then they press Alt Tab and browse internet, look at some cats, whatever, and wait before the actual battle starts. And currently, the client starts pinning 5 seconds before the battle start. While you Alt Tab again, you lose another couple seconds, and you may not have enough time to switch the loadout. So we'll be increasing this timer when the client begins to flash by 5 seconds more. We believe that 10 seconds or around so is enough for the player to check the setup, quickly evaluate what map they're on, and do a couple key presses.
Thanks.
So, Black. So to piggyback also off the dual setups, for the equipment, like everyone's been asking about, why did you guys not decide to extend it also to the field modifications to have 2 different setups for that as well?
Dima?
Oh yeah, that's let's just say that's something for us to add in the future. For now, we have decided to, as I said before, this is only an introduction of the system itself and the parts of the system. Pre-battle layouts is also some kind of new thing. We would like to get it working with things that already are already mastered by our players. I would think so everyone knows already, and adding field modifications perhaps in the future would be a great touch for expanding the system.
Yeah, and basically, just to add up on that, we decided that it would be easier, well, conservative probably, but easier to implement a simpler system that would be easier for our players to get a hand on, like to understand how it works and so on. Because, well, the system is quite complex as it is, with those new mechanics, levels, experience, and so dual modifications like resets, and so on and so forth. If we added even more complexity to that, we risk that even fewer players will understand what it actually means for them, how it's supposed to work, what they can achieve with that system. So what we offer for the sandbox is basically the backbone, the absolute minimum that we like feel like. At the same time, it's comprehensive, it works in itself, but it doesn't have any unnecessary stuff, and it also can be extended, like the current implementation can be used as a base, and then the system can be extended to new limits, provided that it is accepted by the players. So there was no need to make it more complex than it is now. So in the future, if we see the demand, we may add like setups, configurations, presets, or well, whatever, lots of stuff, depending on what people demand. For the time being, we don't think that it is vital to the interaction with the system.
Thank you.
So with the new field modifications, I think you guys are meaning to find a way to specialize your vehicle or to fit a role you want in the battlefield, as just like the Crew 2.0 came. Is that gonna be adjusted with Crew 2.0? Did you abandon it, or it's gonna work with that? How is that specialization moving forward with the incoming new gameplay mechanics?
Okay, if I've got your question right, like whether we are thinking of how our feature will interact with the new Crew system.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, you all know that the Crew system that we presented, our players told us, like, in a very straightforward way, that it should be changed. It requires certain changes, and that is what the team is working on now. Like, I cannot talk about what will happen, when it will happen, but since we affect the same set of parameters, like vehicle parameters, we cannot ignore each other, so to say. So depending on like how our system is accepted, what happens to the development of like or redesign of the Crew system, or how it will turn out, we definitely interact with each other. But we have like technically independent system. It means that in the field modification, we don't have like anything related to the Crew. We have no modifications that give something to your Crew other than some resistance to injuries. But that's just like universal. It doesn't depend on what Crew system we're running. Like we don't have modifications that improve some Crew skills or anything like that, because we are a system in itself. They are also like a separate system. We can work in cooperation, but we also can work independently. Our main goal, like when watching what goes on with the Crew, is to make sure that a combination of our features does not breed monsters which shoot 5 shells in 5 seconds and like drive 100 kilometers per hour and like bounce anything that gets shot at them.
Just what I thought. Thanks.
So you're right in the statement that definitely what we all do with our recent features, it is all aimed at people having the choice and us having the versatility in battles, like that no two mouses are the same. However, I have to disappoint you. I really cannot comment on the status of the crew or what it will offer or what it will not offer to our players, simply because I don't know. I don't deal with the crew in any way.
As we can see, something is changing.
Tragic.
The,
I
Go ahead.
believe your audio was not coming through, nor was Domo's. People in the chat are saying they didn't listen to anything.
Yeah. The question was essentially the same way we had two crew loadout, or the same way we had two, I typed in chat, two equipment loadout options that we were talking about before, where you could have a camo net on one and select another. The question that just didn't come in audio was, will that be extended to something like crews and having two sets of crews with two separate skill sets as an option to select? That's pretty much what the question was hitting at, for those that couldn't hear.
Well, I have a question. Assuming you
Yeah,
guys can
sure.
everybody can still hear, right?
Yeah, not
Yeah.
sleeping.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I did a few numbers, and I wanted to know if this was intentional or not. So if I have a mouse and I throw on the piece of equipment that gives me extra hit points, which is the improved hardening, it adds 10% hit points. That brings the mouse to 3,300. And if you do the field modifications and you use just the standard ones, that gives you another 7% to your hit points. It actually brings the total survivability, the total hit points up to 3,540, which means it's not 3,000, which is the standard, times 17%. It's actually 3,000 times 10% times 7%. You've actually multiplied, not additive, in terms of the percentage for the increase. Is that intentional?
Dima, it's about the mouse.
Oh yes, it's
fair
about the
question
mouse.
for you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this is how Value said it is a server thingy. I will not go into very boring technical details, but it is how it is. So you're absolutely right. This is how it works and has been always working.
It's all sandbox,
Interesting.
bro.
So do you think it's too much or too little? Like, what way should we tweak it?
Get it to 4K.
Nice.
Push
At
those
the
numbers
expense
up,
of
pump
something
them
else,
up.
I imagine.
That's
Actually,
more
to
like
add
it.
to this point,
You realize we'll have to double the cost of premium account for that.
Oh,
Do you so on that note, that's actually a really good question in chat. Is it intentional to also have this interact with the special boosts that you get from clan activities? So during a Clan Wars campaign, they have those specialized like one-time use pieces of equipment. Will those also be added on to these things?
Yes, they will stock.
So it could potentially be 7% times an even larger number.
Yes, 15%, I think.
oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, it will get 4K.
Gonna need a lot of time in those Clan Wars battles and make sure your tanks have enough shells. It's a lot of HP to chew through.
Yeah, like if you get like those 907s and you face a full setup of the mouse tanks, you're probably not in a very good spot for the winning.
Your mouse would have 3,700 HP with that.
907s need more shells. Can we get a shell booster add-on?
Yeah, the
I
Manticore
don't
just
know.
entered chat.
Well, the Manticore doesn't often fight the mouse tanks.
Mhm.
Yeah, but well, we should realize that the optimal way to kill such mouse is to like put a mouse of your own against it. But yeah, again, we are like working in cooperation with the clan wars, with the competitive teams to make sure that we don't break anything in their modes as well.
Mhm.
So that's not something that we've overlooked, and that's like the fact that they will be stacking. That's intentional.
Indeed, and once again, I would like to underline that we're constantly monitoring the situation, and should something go awry, then to the rescue.
Yeah.
So one
basically,
thing. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, like things to understand is that the concepts, like the whole logic of dual modification, so like equipment setups, are not very easy to change. The actual numbers, like it's very easy to change 5 or 7% to 5%. Like, can be done in like at an instant, let's say. So if we see that the concept holds true, then basically tweaking the numbers so that we don't ruin anything anywhere is a much simpler task.
I actually have a question that don't know if was answered. I'm rechecking the article to make sure because I don't remember seeing a single thing in the video before about it. And that's artillery. Artillery are included in these alternate advancements as well, I am assuming.
It is.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah,
So one thing that concerned me throughout all of it was once we started adding bonded equipment, once we stared adding, well, then the Crew 2.0, but all of these new factors that just kind of, for some tanks, it may be a plus or minus or this or that, but with artillery, it just ends up being, look, he's going to reload 2 seconds faster. Look, he's just going to aim in that much quicker. Are there any concerns with just artillery being able to fire faster, more accurately? Yes, there may be some downgrades one side or the other, but I don't like the idea of, yeah, I can aim 5% faster, but I'm going to be stunned that much more, and it's going to be multiplied over the course of 3 enemy artillery, because also, like you said, with people playing a vehicle over and over again, typically these artilleries, people are going to have maxed out if they play artillery, and it's just going to be that much more of an issue. So how did you approach the artillery side of this, I guess, in your calculations, or how do you foresee that going?
Dima, it's also on you.
yeah, the artillery is kind of on a very difficult spot because of obvious reasons. Its gameplay niche is very like niche. Well, once again, I'm saying strange thing, but here we go. We've tried to like look at the artillery from a whole new angle. There's a lot of different artilleries on tier 10. Well, most of them are roughly the same. There's one which is kind of very special. Just a bit odd, there's always going to be something odd with artillery because of its play style. We try to like nudge players to try and see new ways to play artillery. For example, much to surprise of many players, artillery can actually move. And it can like, yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, hold on there. Yeah, but and depending on how well the artillery moves, it can actually perform differently and perform better. And artillery field modification tree actually provides bonuses to mobility as well as survivability for those who decide to try this stunning new ability to move around the battlefield, to be able to reach different places with it God Mod gun. But for those who prefer classical artillery gameplay, which does not include such advanced tactics, well, here we go. You're gonna be aiming 3% faster.
Yeah, I am concerned. I know there were proposed artillery changes throughout a lot of different times. It's just when we implement a new change and then kind of don't go through with maybe some of the others, it just I'm concerned that's typically one of the things that I know I'm supposed to use anonymizer to try to help, but typically I just spend most of the time stunned, and all of the 30% more aim time or move speed or horsepower, all of it kind of goes out the window if I'm stunned.
Did you play the sandbox?
I did not play the sandbox, no.
Because it also has the
shell change?
The new artillery system, yeah, the shell changes, it all has it implemented. And like from my experience, I was stunned like twice in a dozen battles that I was able to play today. And like for me, it no longer feels a problem that I'm all as before that I often have those debuffs and I bring like 2 mid kits and I want to bring another 5. Nothing like that. Again, with the artillery, that's also one of the things that we will be closely monitoring, because differently from other vehicle types and from it only has a single role, which says like SPG. It has a single like tree of those modifications, but we have very different artilleries, like the French one. I'm talking about tier 10s, and mind, I'm not an expert in artillery. I played like the last time I played artillery was in 2014, I think. But we have the French one, which is like quick, has a magazine, can move around the battlefield freely, because it has nothing to do when it reloads. And we have the T92, which is like solid, set in stone. Like the most it moves in a battle is 5 meters. Those behave and probably play differently. And we shall see whether the single set of parameters or modifications fits them, and how the overall performance of artillery changes in the game. It's too early to say now that like it will make or break something, but we will definitely be monitoring, because we do not want to see like a prominent increase in efficiency of artillery from field modification. That's definitely not our goal.
Just an outside the box idea, maybe if the modifications for artillery, for example, focus less on the gun, the reload, the aim time, whatever, and more on, say, mobility. There may be a cycle. I think a lot of this is, like you talked about the mouse a lot, it's RP, it's role playing, it's getting in. And if the modifications are increase to top speed, increase to acceleration, things like that may push, like you said, artillery players maybe to be more, hey, I've modified this T92 to go faster. Now I don't have to just push shift in the spawn. Like I should be moving. Like that could be used as a potentially good gameplay change. And I mean, I would be more for things like that for sure. And could help. But anyway.
Yeah, that actually sounds like a fine idea. We should definitely track that.
So with my last question, with some of these field modifications, for some tanks, like because I played the test server a little bit, some tanks it feels like giving the one thing in return doesn't really do that much, and you just get buffed. Like it's the game of min-maxing. You know what I mean? For example, tanks with 410 base view range. I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you give up view range for HP. Is that correct? I think that's what it was. But for example, if you have 410 base view range, you give up, 2% view range for more HP. At the end of the day, once you have 445, especially like in a heavy tank or anything like that, you're not really scouting. Do you feel like some of them may just be straight up buffs compared to that? Like they're not really detriments to the tank? Do you get what I'm trying to say?
You and I value view range very differently.
Well,
Well,
Yeah, Dima,
yeah,
please.
yeah, I understand what you're trying to say. The thing is, the system is like semi-universal, right? So they have roles that are assigned to many tanks. So like several tanks share the same role. For some of the tanks, that what you say may exactly seem true, but for other tanks that fall into the same role, that may be viewed differently. And as was mentioned, we do view range. Once again, I'm saying stupid thing. We view range differently. For example, I would never give up even 1 meter of view range, my friend.
I guess this is just like the competitive side of me. For example, as far as comp goes, you have EBRs. You basically just need 445 in my opinion, so you're not getting shot within view range. But when you have EBRs and other light tanks that do that job for you, and you still have 445 base because you're using improved equipment, so you can just slap on improved vents and you'll get to 445 with food. To me, it doesn't really seem like a nerf. It just seems like a straight up buff. Like I said, it's just a game of min maxing at that point. Is that what you guys are intending with field modifications, or is it more just like that's just an unintended consequence?
Okay, so basically, if I understood you correctly, the thing like your concern is that there may be some dual modifications which seem like an evident choice, like A is better than B. If we see that statistically the majority of people select A over B, it is a very clear sign for us that this modification should be adjusted, that either we have to improve B or nerf A, so that it makes not such an evident choice. Regarding the competitive scene, again, you'd be surprised how much your gameplay experience differs from gameplay experience of an average player, because we have, like, once we started checking the numbers, I was surprised at how many people play tier 10s with no equipment, or with only a single piece of equipment set into the first slot. So like the reality for them is entirely different from you being the dedicated player, from you using the best equipment, the directives, the food consumables which boost your crew, all the buffs that you probably can have in the game. You're using it all. There, many people play it very, very differently. They're not about min-max and stuff. So like this may I forgot the word. This may be very different depending on actually who's playing the game.
Yeah, no, I understand that because there's, like I said, my world is, I mean, I play pubs still, but I focus on the competitive, but I know there's players who just, they have 150K games and tier 7s or tier 8s. I exclusively play tier 10s for the most part. So yeah, I do understand that. I was just more just trying to get an idea of what you guys like, if you guys are trying to create a complex system of like giving up for getting, or if just right now, I know because it's all in testing and things change. I was just curious if it is an unintentional consequence for that to happen, the min maxing, or if you guys might even exclusively, like if you find, hey, on this one tank, everyone's picking this one thing, maybe we should change this piece of equipment up to be different values for this one tank. When you see those statistics?
Well, currently the system is role based, so
Mhm.
but again, depending on the role, like you have initially the first three basic standard modifications and dual modifications are the same for, let's say, all heavy tanks from tier 6 to tier 10. The difference comes at later tiers, because tier 9 vehicles get the tier 7, the level 7 modifications, and tier 10 vehicles get the level 8 modifications. So that's where the role differences transpire. And like, we believe that vehicles within the same role, they should behave like approximately like in a very similar pattern in the game. So changes like to some specific vehicle, if we see that something like is not the way it is for all other vehicles, then we should probably like change its role, like look closely into it. But like, if the modifications for all other vehicles within the role are fine, that it's a signal for us that we probably should do something with the vehicle, not with the modifications.
Thank you.
How many percentage of players don't have equipment on tier 10s?
I won't tell you, because that might be too shocking news for you.
That's privileged right there.
I had someone ask me if players don't go in with equipment, like you're saying, like a weird percentage. How do you think this change won't affect them at all? Then, like, how do you guys view that? Like, if you're adding, because this is essentially equipment, just a different like flavor of it, right? In a sense. So if you have people who are not even using equipment, but they're still playing lots of battles, are they going to even benefit from this system? I mean, other than I guess the grinding, it'll be passive, but
The grinding. So basically, while you may not be able like to have, like, it's your choice, absolutely, like to have equipment or not buy it, yeah, whatever. While there is a significant percentage of such people, we first of all like target the people who do know like what they want to get from that feature, what the second set of equipment will offer them. If the people decide that they don't need equipment, or they don't need like a second set of consumables, they're fine as it is on their IS-7 with the gun rammer and nothing more, it's their choice. We can't like force them, like, you guys have to invest in field modifications, otherwise we will, I don't know, do bad things to you. We can't force anyone. That's their choice. We have other people who want to have more choice, and the feature is specifically for those people who want more choice than the game currently offers you. More choice in equipment, more choice in consumables, more choice in ammunition, more choice in vehicle parameters and how you tweak it. If you don't need it, well, fine by us. It's definitely not intended as a system for everyone, from a very casual player who plays like 5 battles per month to a very pro player who plays like 2,000 battles per month.
So speaking of the categories of the vehicles, if you're wanting to add more choice to the player, like if I'm looking at my Patton, and right now they're reassigned, so I can add a second category to give a bonus to. And what's available on the sandbox is I can either give it a boost to scouting or a boost to survivability. But I would like to give it a boost to damage. Is there any opportunity that you would widen the gamut of what people could select for a second bonus slot?
Dima, do you want to comment on that, or should I?
Well, the thing is, there are like certain reasons we haven't added the full set of bonuses. First of all, having 2 slots of the same category would definitely be like over the top, as we think so far.
I would agree
And
with that.
And we haven't added also, like, so to say, the opposite slot. which is, for example, for mouse, it would be what do you say it?
Mobility.
For mouse, no, it's not mobility. For mouse, it's actually reconnaissance.
Okay.
Yeah, for obvious reasons, because we would like to narrow down it to the tank's role, right? So it doesn't really feel right for mouse to be reconnaissance vehicle. Am I right? Yeah, but still, once again, I would like to point out that we are starting a new system here. We would like to see how it works, how it feels, and think maybe in the future we can like reevaluate certain parts of it, but not result not guaranteed.
Yeah, so just like to make it clear, this is a sandbox. Nothing is set in stone. If we get like lots of feedback that, hey guys, this like setting category stuff is great, but I really need firepower for my medium tanks, which kind of seems logical because medium tanks can do significant damage in the right hands. Then that should be also a clear signal for us that like ES would definitely need to think this over, how it may affect the game, like what may happen if we do implement that, because people definitely like are asking for that. So on the one hand, we have those cases where the mouse is a recon vehicle, which is kind of weird, and like if we offer you this selection, like choosing recon for the mouse, who in their sane mind would like do something about it? You boost it to its survivability, firepower. You only have 3 slots of equipment, but at the same time, like firepower for medium tanks sounds reasonable enough, and we have some cases. So it all depends on the feedback. It all depends on what the players will tell us, because like again, nothing is set in stone, and like we're only starting. We can go on from what we offer now.
Cool. Thank you.
Anyone else? I may have another question, but it may come out a little bit stupid. But have you thought about maybe making the modifications unlockable only by experience, not by credits? Maybe that would make it easier for players, and it would actually kind of force you, not force you, but make you want to play the tank more. But let's say you're playing a mouse, and sure, you can get the experience to like unlock the different sets, but then you'll have to pay credits, extra credits for each modification, and if you want to change them, you have to pay again. What about making everything with experience? Would that be something far-fetched?
Yeah, okay, I have a funny answer for that. Like, if that mouse has to pay for modifications, it has fewer credits to pay for special ammunition to shoot at you. And the serious answer is probably for Dimota Pride.
It kind of makes sense, but I guess like
Yeah, like
yeah,
if,
it makes
if
sense.
Dima is still with
a
us.
certain way.
Because, well, the thing is, nothing like in real life, yeah, very few things, and even fewer good things in this life come for free. If we are talking about like 5-tuning the vehicle, I don't know a single garage that does it for free because like I'm a cool guy. Like very few things people do for free nowadays. But yeah, anyway, so it's kind of logical since we're talking about like modification means you've got to find the people who will do you that, like do something with the hardware and so on and so probably get some like customized stuff at the God knows where. So the custom credits is like kind of logical from the RP standpoint, since we've already touched upon that previously. Since this is very like design-heavy decision, I don't actually know whether at some point in time it was viewed that we should only use experience, like bigger numbers, lower numbers, and so on and so forth. By the way, the numbers on the sandbox are provisional. That's not something like if the feature goes to the release, those numbers are extremely likely to change or differ across vehicle tiers and so on and so forth. These pricing credits, it has its goals. And yeah, as I said, one of the things, like the positive things, if that mouse is spending credits for modification, it means that it's not spending credits for special ammunition to shoot at you. So we should like look at the good stuff of things. But yeah, well, you have to pay for things in like in our game in real life. So yeah, that's no different.
Yeah, of course. And to
So-
like kind of go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I was just going to piggyback off your question.
Yeah, to like add up, I'm guessing that the credit price will act as a credit sink, because like I said, you can like cancel the purchase and purchase it again. So if someone goes like, okay, I want to test it out with like different things, they are going to be spending a lot of credits. And I'm guessing like for experienced players that already have a lot of credits, I'm guessing that will work like a credit sink in a way. Unlike equipment, because you buy it and you already have it. You just have to move it around.
Yeah, it's more of akin to the system we have. I'm sorry, I had technical difficulties, so I wasn't able to answer earlier. It's more akin to the system we have during the research of a vehicle when you research a module for experiences and purchase it for a coin, silver coins. So yeah, I would say it's more of a logical follow-up, as it's the same process of upgrading your tank.
But wouldn't you say it's not exactly like that? Because when you change the gun on a vehicle,
The gun stands
you've
with
already bought it, it's in your depot. With this, it's as simple as it's just a simple credit siphon on a macro scale with a lot of players where they're just thinking some people have accrued too much credits and we need to siphon it off. For a player like me that pretty much has boredom and free XPs at tier 10 and buys it because I can pretty much always have infinite credits, right? And there's players that have a bunch more than me. It just seems like a way to siphon off some of that, and it's not going to affect me, but it's going to affect even it will affect the casual player, but even just the moderate player, like the average player. But it's just, to me, the idea that everything costs money, but you unlock one and you unlock both. To me, it's like you pay the upfront cost, and then you should be able to swap between. The idea of just having to pay the credits each time you decide to switch is a little bit too.
Or even if you want to try something and then remove it and then try it again.
Exactly. It's going to prevent people from trying. It feels like I'm being.
It
feels
becomes
like
a sink.
You said everything isn't free. It feels like a mechanic I don't want to go back to, and I'm going to find a new mechanic for my car.
Well, that's actually my feeling every time I go to a car mechanic. Yeah. Well, again, I'm not really I don't have possessed enough information to talk about the the credit stuff. But yes, again, if you, let's say, like you don't want to bother much with the feature, like, I don't have much credits to experiment, I just want like the best setup I can get for my money. I can go watch, like, find a video like best setup for the mouse, and there will be a dozen people telling me what to mount, what modifications to use, and so on and so forth. And I then can simply copy paste and like be done with it. And that would cost me like not some shocking amount of credits. For the people who wish to experiment, yeah, that's definitely like you want to try new things. you suddenly you have to credits into it. But you can like if you don't aim for actual gameplay experience, we already have in the article a widget for that where you can like check it out, what modifications will do what. You can actually check it out during the sandbox, like make an opinion of your favorite vehicle, what modifications it will offer. So like in the positive case for us, if the feature is released, by that time you already know that I want this, this, and that, and I've got the credits to do that. And we don't expect that people will switch those often. It's like I tried one, I probably tried the other, or switched it to neither, and then I go on playing like that. So like it's not a search for an optimal configuration over like dozens of iterations. At least like we don't imagine that it will be like that. So we think it will not involve like serious amounts of credits over the long term. But again, this all is configurable depending on the feedback. Naturally, we do understand that people always prefer to have something cheaper rather than more expensive, ideally freely. But yeah, we also have our goals, as a project, as a product. So like aligning them in the best way possible is our goal, but you've got to understand that we can't simply make everything free, because actually like when people get everything free, they become bored very, very soon, and like weird things start happening. We like one of the goals of the system, and now I'm talking like Dima. One of the goals of the system is to grant a long-term goal, not something achievable over a couple of days. Like experience-wise, credits-wise, people need goals all the time. So that's exactly what this feature does. So is supposed to do.
Just a quick thing to add on to that question. In the promotion video, there's a map where you have the tanks going up hills, shooting at targets and that sort of thing. Do you think, because if this field modification comes in the game, there'll be a lot of people who want to tinker with how things perform. Do you think in the future there might be a possibility you can add like a solo training room to test out those equipments, like in different loadouts for free, not like a try before you buy sort of system for this?
Well, I
That
don't.
may be kind of problematic because the way the game works, the battle for like one player is exactly the same battle as it is for 30 players, and massive amounts of such battles may affect game's stability very, very much. That's hence why we are not allowing training rooms to start with like one player. We may think about something like that in the future, but so far it doesn't seem likely.
Is there no ability for you guys to allow something like that to run just on the client side?
No,
Yeah, saying shortly, no.
because people can do lots of funny stuff on the client side, like funny in a bad way.
Even if they were restricted to a solo room? That's what I'm suggesting, just for testing things, like a test room. Have that
I
run
don't.
client side.
Yeah, I
That,
don't.
that's beyond the scope of this conversation. But
I don't think that's what he's asking. I think what he's asking is more so like,
I don't
why
think
can't,
chat
why
heard
isn't
you,
there a,
Tragic.
Alright.
So that was
do you-
the point I was making, Tragic, was that yes, I understand lots of people trying to get into their own rooms for testing would create massive server draw. So why not have a system in place where you could run a single map client side? That way you're not having to draw on the servers and it's just for you and your vehicle alone.
So basically, I don't think that like either myself or Dmitry are technically competent enough to answer this question with a good degree of certainty. Basically, our client is not supposed to do that. It doesn't do that. All it gets all the data regarding the movement and like the technical stuff, where vehicles are, how they behave, how it should be calculated, their behavior. It all gets that from the server. Like implementing that on the client would technically be a very like an enormous task. And while there may be some demand in, let's say, enthusiasts for that, it's definitely not something that we feel we should invest our resources, because like it's not something like statistically significant amount of our players request of us. So for enthusiasts, we believe that the training room functionality should be sufficient. We also have a number of initiatives regarding maps and testing, but you should definitely watch for our news communications regarding those. I cannot speak like in details about that.
Appreciate you answering the question as best you can.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry if that wasn't what you expected to hear. But you should understand that technically, like the further we go topic-wise from the field modification, the less we can or are allowed to say.
Of course.
So if anybody in chat has very specific questions about post progression, like, please do bring it up. We're gonna basically try to answer as many questions as possible. This time I believe everybody can hear me. Oh my god, I know everyone can hear me now. They're all happy in chat now. But yeah, some things we have spoken about, such as the solo training rooms thing. We've talked about, I know there's a lot of people who are new here. So if you're new here, please do check out our FAQ. It has a lot of information about things like, oh, are you bringing back new maps, blah, 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 this and that. There have been multiple questions about like things like artillery and whether or not we want to turn the amount of artillery down to X number per battle. There's been a lot of there have been a few people who are throwing out statistical numbers that I would challenge everybody if you can. And, you know, this is something that I tell everybody who likes to throw out random numbers and take it as true. There is a replay analyzer. Go find it. All you have to do is Google it. You can literally go and you can say, hey, you know, I believe that, you know, 80% of battles are X. Like if you say 80% of battles are less than, you know, 4 minutes long, I challenge you. Like, go for it. Because I've done my own research. I've done my own analysis of my own replays. It's about 7 minutes, give or take, which is pretty reasonable. That's about half the match time. Most are longer than that. So, Anywho, if you have questions specifically about post-progression, we're about heading into wrap-up time, so I'm gonna potentially hand it off to Domo.
Always enjoy the disembodied voice of Tragic.
Oh, I bet. Hey, Domo, are you out there?
Uh-oh. Can you not hear him?
He's muted. You're tricking me. Anywho, so let's see.
I can hear him.
I may kick you from this Discord channel because of that. Anyways, I'm kidding. So I have a question from someone in chat. So here's one question for either Neon or Draconis. Generally, people think the game is already too fast, as in there are a lot of hypermobile vehicles. And so they want to know if you believe that it is good to continue adding things that will make these vehicles faster?
Again, the funny answer would be, but you are now able to shoot at them more efficiently. As for the serious answer, I think that Dima will help me with it. If he doesn't have technical difficulties again.
Okay, let's see. That's not a question.
Okay.
Oh, so Fruit Loops wants to know.
Well,
Yeah, go for it.
Tragic had me muted earlier. Hopefully, folks
did.
can hear me now. I did see a really good question from chat that I wanted to ask. So Exo in chat was asking, are there any plans to improve the onboarding situation for players as far as the merits of equipment in battle? I know that the boot camp does kind of take you through equipment a little bit, but I also know that a lot of players, I've seen friends of mine as well run into this where they're up at like tier 5, tier 6, tier 7, and they haven't equipped any equipment. So that said, is there maybe like will there be something to introduce players to this feature in sort of a controlled environment? Maybe like one free modernization so they can try out, the modernization feature.
Let's keep this on topic to post progression. FYI, so we're only focusing on post progression stuff from chat in terms of answers
specifically for this feature. Is
okay.
there going to be like some sort of a something to make the barrier to entry? Because I know a lot of folks are talking about that there's going to be a big barrier to entry for the feature, and folks aren't going to be able to try it out. So, any plans to have some form of like, be it a free modernization for one of your tanks, or a field modification for one of your tanks, or anything like that, so that basically players who don't know about this feature can get a chance to try it out without having to invest a bunch of credits or experience.
Okay, as for the boot camp, we decided that we will not be including any introduction to the field modification into the boot camp, because again, we primarily believe that primarily the feature is targeted at like seasoned players who know what they're doing. Unloading as like a huge set of parameters onto a new player, like we don't think that it would be the right thing to do, because like we have firepower, we have several parameters that like affect it in a, let's say, more straightforward way, but we also have those stabilization from hull rotation, stabilization from turret rotation, stabilization from blah blah blah, and so on and so forth. We have like dozens of parameters. Before the player figures them out, like while they play, before the player gets actual experience in what happens into the game, how vehicles behave, what things are most important for them, we don't think that it would be right to make them make a choice about those parameters. It would be like they wouldn't be making an informed choice, more like a very expensive guess, because they need experience, they need credits, and as a result, they don't actually know like what they will be getting, what will be good for their vehicle and for the way they play it, and what will be bad. So again, we advise that newer players first climb the tech tree, check out various nations, check out various gameplay styles, decide what they like, and then once they do, that's the time when they can dive deep into field modification. First, probably like check what loadouts are in place, why they are popular, and so on and so forth, to get a better understanding of the game. Because that's a pretty complex stuff, and like focusing attention of newer players on it instead of researching new vehicles, new mechanics. That's not what we are aiming at.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. So, like, not only would the information be difficult for someone who doesn't know how the game works to digest, it's also they would get much more benefit from just progressing up the tech tree and experiencing, more of what the game has to offer before they try to mess with that feature. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, because I think that getting back to that car mechanic thing, I'm not a fan of like I have a car, but I'm not a fan of those like getting deep into the topic. And every time a car mechanic asks me, what do I want like to do with my like engine or something like that, I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't make like any sense to me. Option A or option B. I don't know how the engine works and how like what decision I should make. Please explain me what option B does and option A does. And for us, it means that we would have to explain like in a very concentrated manner what those like 50 parameters do, and ideally make it like within the same session for the player to like dive into the system, make choices, and as a result get a finished vehicle. That would be too much information for them. It would be much more friendly if they accumulated this knowledge like in a very not slow, but my English fails me here, like in a very like relaxed way from actual battles, from watching a video here, reading some article there, and then like once they play it, they get an understanding of what's important for them, instead of having to sit and read through 5-10 pages of concentrated information at once.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Even with just the overall progression of the game, it gets sort of introduces you to new mechanics as you get higher up in the tech tree. So yeah, logic would dictate that it would kind of work the same way. So yeah, makes sense.
I mean, yes and no, right? For dual modifications, yes, absolutely, because you're sacrificing one attribute to gain something in another. Whereas if you're a standard player and you ignore dual modifications, you really aren't losing anything. But I still think the standard modifications, which is just a flat buff to any vehicle between tier 6 and 10, that's the one that I have issue with. Sorry.
Agreed.
I'm passionate. I like the dual modification. I think it's a really interesting way to breathe life into vehicles that maybe were a little stale, but I still have problems with standard modifications personally.
In a way that you believe like they are too strong, too weak, should be accessed earlier or easier? Like what's the actual problem you perceive?
So my actual problem is that it offers just a flat benefit to anybody that has the free experience or the time to go through past the elite, right? So my issue is it offers an advantage to experienced players that new players don't have available to them, and they won't have until they've progressed as far as experienced players have. And the second part of that is it widens the characteristic gap between tiers. Tier 6, tier 7, tier 8, like how's a tier 5 supposed to compete with a tier 7 who not only already has higher starting characteristics, that characteristic is now multiplied by 5%.
It's not multiplied, it's a flat addition, like the plus sign, not the multiplication sign. I understand what you mean, but
So let me
Technically-
rephrase it this way, okay?
Yeah.
I love World of Tanks. I stream it 3 days a week, and I love talking about the game. I love playing the game, and I love explaining the game and how it works. And so when a new player comes to me or someone who's just getting into the game, and they're like, "Hey, can you help me understand field modifications?" If it was only the dual system, I could say, you know what, don't worry about field modifications until you have a few tier tons in your garage. It's not really worth it. But with the standard modifications, then I have to start to explain that, listen, your vehicle won't be as good as other people with the same vehicle until you're through the elite progression and you start putting even more experience on it.
Okay, I know what you mean. Now, it's my turn to ask questions. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
do you believe that 2% to engine power would make a new player competitive to yourself, for instance, in a tier 7 vehicle? I would say it's like extremely unlikely, because it all actually comes down to experience, to how many battles the person plays. A personal story: when I started at Wargaming, which was back in 2014, and later a guy joined us who like never played World of Tanks, and I was like at 56% win rate at that time, and like he knew nothing about the game. He played horribly, like it's something like 44%. Over the years, he played a lot of the game. Now he is at 63% win rate, back from like 40 something 6-7 years ago. And that's not because his vehicle, like Magical, was granted 2% to engine power. That's because he got the experience. We in the field modification, I understand your concern perfectly well, but I think it's more of a like point of attention for, let's say, someone brought up the competitive scene where people are of approximately equal skill, and it all may come down to this difference in numbers that decides the outcome of battle. But for the like standoff where a new player stands against an experienced player will destroy them, not because they have 30 more hit points. They will destroy them because they know where to penetrate their vehicle, when their gun reloads, basically, and like where to get to the best position, how to get there on time, where the artillery can destroy them and where the artillery won't reach them, and a multitude of other things that only come with experience. So we know, like in general, that World of Tanks is not very friendly towards newer players, but we do not believe that with the field modification, this like equilibrium or lack of it will shift dramatically into either side. It's more of a like general homework that we all have to do at Wargaming to improve the actual flow of new players towards the more experienced players, to make this experience like more pleasant, more straightforward. I think you know what I mean.
So
It's
just
going to be difficult. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, just to add on to 13 Disciples' point, and like what you're saying to me, I know earlier you said the reason why you're adding the standard modifications is like sort of a reward for getting it, but like in my my personal opinion, I think it's a reward enough to be able to choose the dual modification system. I don't think there's a reason to add the standard on top of it. And if there's no like, if you guys don't see a reason like 2% to engine or 2% to HP makes a difference, why even add it at that point? Why not just keep it as the dual modification system? And your reward is, oh, you get to, customize your tank after every stage. Like, why not leave it at like that? Seems more simple to me, personally.
Okay, so there may be cases like we've got plenty of those when we, let's say, tested the system internally, where you watch it to do a modification and you kind of like one of the choices, but the penalty seems too much for you. And the same with the opposite choice. Well, you kind of like it, but the things you sacrifice for it, they don't overweight the bonus for you. And you're at a stage where you invested 28,000 XP and you get nothing. And like the only thing that you get is the opportunity to get another level of field modification, where you may again like face the choice that you personally don't think is like very valuable to you. So those slight bonuses were introduced basically as a non-conditional reward for you investing that amount of experience, and we do not believe that those will be game breaking like at any point. Those are they are simply too minor to do that, to actually matter. They like again, the only case where they may matter is like a purely theoretical battle between equal like opponents of equal skill, equal vehicles, where like no one else shoots at them and nothing happens. Like like in physics, or they have like those closed system where nothing affects the system from like no external factors. So like if we imagine this situation that yeah, a vehicle with field modification and a vehicle without those bonuses from standard modifications, like one may win over another due to the difference of 50 hit points or 30 hit points, something like that. In a real battle environment, that's extremely unlikely. People may be like attributing their losses to the fact that that guy probably had field modification because he had like 30 HP more than me. But in reality, there are like plenty of other things that affect the outcome of battle in a much more meaningful way. So we view it as a minor pleasant bonus for you investing experience into the future. Whether, again, nothing is final, especially regarding the numbers, so things can be changed if like, but not rewarding people for investing their experience also seemed wrong to us, given the fact that we do not make them like force them to make the choice in dual modifications. And like our idea is that people should not be forced to make a choice. That it's completely normal to skip some dual modification because you don't like the drawbacks that you will have to face.
So I guess my only like response to that is two things. Maybe it would be interesting to look into a system where you can choose, like, so I know stage 8 equipment you can't get till stage 8. Maybe have a system where you can choose, you know what I mean? I want stage 8 equipment for stage 1. You see what I'm saying? So like if I invest 28k experience, that's what's on the server right now, why not just allow me to choose what, parameter or set of parameters I want to change with that investment instead of doing the flat buff? Like what's, I guess, and then the other thing is like as far as the video, the promotion was concerned, it seemed to be aimed at people who enjoyed playing this tank. Like that's the whole point of it. Like I'm playing this tank a lot because I like it, so I'm already investing my time into playing it. When you say it like, oh, they're grinding it, it makes it sound like more to me like there is a benefit to it, that's why they're grinding it, versus what the proposed purpose of it was. It's supposed to be to enhance a tank that you have fun in, so you're going to keep playing that tank anyway. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Okay. For like two well, not questions, but you had 2 points, so I'm answering first to the one about letting people like tweak the parameters that they want. Imagine what a nightmare it would be for us to somehow balance things out. We currently
No. I think
Like-
you misunderstand. Sorry,
Oh.
I meant like, at the certain stages, like stage 8, I can choose between these two pieces. Why can't I have those two pieces at stage 1, like with my first investment? Not like saying I want to increase my gun handling and decrease my track, like my own choice, but the choices you give me, I can select them at whatever stage I want. Do you get that? What I'm trying to say there?
Yeah, I got what you mean. That would apart from like probably a multitude of other things that my mind is incapable of thinking over because I'm not a game designer by profession, it would become technically an extremely like a much more difficult task to implement the system correctly because like having the knowledge of how much pain we had to go through with changing the parameters like dynamically and so on and so forth, allowing this freedom and the inability to predict the combinations would create a lot more technical difficulties for us. I'm not talking this will never happen. We may like in some point of time arrive to that, but we need to do that. But at this time, that would definitely be a much more complicated system. So we like that's why we are not doing this at that moment.
So, folks, we are starting to run a little bit over our time. I just noticed a pause, so I'm thinking maybe. But feel free to chime in if you guys have any more questions. But I guess if we can just start getting ready to wrap it up, because I know it's getting fairly late for
Yeah.
for Neon Shadow and Draconis, and they've joined us for well over 2 hours now. So
Yeah, it's
I'll
over
hand it
1
off.
a.m. for me.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it. So if anybody has any quick questions to wrap up, feel free and shoot them off. We're gonna try to get going here in a couple of minutes.
I do have a wrap up comment. So I just want to say, guys, I know that the questions can be challenging and pointed. It's because we love the game and we're passionate about it. And it may not seem like it, but we're genuinely appreciative that you came on to answer questions about something that's in Sandbox. So I just want to say, really, thank you for joining us on the NA channel. We really appreciate SCCs. I'm sure the community appreciates that. And if you're in chat and you have strong feelings about this system, make them heard. Go play the Sandbox. Go take the survey. That's the feedback that they're looking for. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and just if I may, both things are actually important for us. If you play, but then skip the survey, we will get the data like from you playing, what modifications you chose, and so on and so forth. But we will not get an understanding of why you chose them, or more importantly, why you didn't choose them. Or like if you entered the sandbox, left 5 minutes away, we will never get an understanding of what you didn't like, whether like the queue time was too long, or whether the prices were outrageous, or whether something else happens, or maybe your girlfriend just phoned you and told me like my parents are not at home, drive at once, like one chance in a lifetime. So yeah, so both things are important, that you play the sandbox. Yeah, and please forgive us for the latency times. We technically cannot place the mirrors like closer to you. And the survey is also very important for us. Not just to get an understanding like what you did, but also why you did it. That will also help us a great deal.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you for your time, guys. It was a great discussion.
Thank you very much for
Was really
putting up with
enjoyable.
me.
Thanks for everything.
All right, well, I guess we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. Again, Neon Shadow, Draconis, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. I hope y'all get some rest. I know it's getting late out there. And everybody in chat, thank you for the hardball questions. We appreciate you guys sharing your feedback with us. So yeah, make sure you guys, if you have a chance, participate in the sandbox. Make sure you fill out the survey if you do participate in the sandbox, and we will be posting feedback threads on the forums as well. So if you want to go into a little bit more detail, you'll have an opportunity to do that. Again, thank you everybody so much. Tragic, if you got anything else for me, or are we ready to sign off?
I believe
guess
we
I will-
should thank our guests, right?
I just did.
Oh, did we? Oh, okay. Well, thank
Yeah,
you,
I did.
Neon Shadow, and thank you, Draconis. I absolutely appreciate you both coming on and chatting with us. I know we didn't get to a whole lot of questions that were in chat. If you are in chat, there were a lot of questions that were asked that didn't have to do with post-progression. If you all have outside questions besides for post-progression, please do join us on our Tuesday streams. We do answer a lot of questions that people ask that, don't have to do with post-progression. So, attend those streams. Otherwise, once again, thank you, Neon Shadow. Thank you, Draconis. And Domo. Let's say goodbye. Goodbye, Domo. Say goodbye to
Bye,
chat.
everybody. Bye, chat. Goodbye,
Yes.
everybody. Have a nice day.
Jeez.